Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie. This is going to be a tour of my vegetable garden just so I can show you what's coming up. And I would love later to hear what's coming up in your gardens. This is the most exciting time of year. So let's look at my gardens and see what's growing. So here we have my first garden bed. This is my strawberry bed. There was a lot of leaves in it over the fall and a lot of dead strawberries. So what I did is I took a large rake and just yanked it through the strawberries, pulled out all the old leaves. The old dead crowns came out, and this is what is left. And we're already getting flowers. So that's a hint of strawberry. I'm really excited about that. The grapes, if you can see that shining in the sun, are still dripping from the pruning that they did last week, but we've got new buds. Let me see if we can get so you can see. We've got new buds starting to grow. So pretty soon here we're going to have grapes. Over here we have my raspberry bed. Now my raspberries have been attacked by cane borers every year for about 3 years. And I did not take care of them very well because I did not know what was attacking them. And now they're showing a bit of some sort of deficiency. I put down some well-rounded fertilizer and some sulfur, and we'll see if they come out of it. But if you look at it, my first crop of the season is getting ready. There's a ton of little tiny buds all through these raspberries. So this is exciting. Next is my garlic bed. This will be ready to harvest probably July. But this is the biggest and healthiest they've looked in a long time. And I don't know if you remember, but I'll link a video on top. I had put a layer of grass and leaf mulch, from the fall when I was doing the fall cleanup. And as usual, we have our little dill coming up, lettuce. I let everything self-sow. Let a lot of things go to seed and self-sow. This right here is a winter savory, which I'll probably pull. We've got some cilantro that's self-seeded, and I'll just let that go. I really love having cilantro all over the yard. Up here, we've got all our little lettuce seedlings, because this is where the lettuce was growing. We've got the arugula, and I love that in the spring salads. In the summer, it gets a little too bitter for me. And then here's my fail. Right here, there's only a few left, but we have some radishes, and we used to have some beets. This is what's left over of the beets. And as you can see right here, I don't know if you can see very well, but those are my chewed up beet seedlings. And before I watered it, there was a bunch of messed up soil, and this is where the quail come and dust bathe, and they seem to like my radish seedlings and my beet seedlings. The only radishes they haven't touched are the ones that got planted and forgotten, and then I planted my onions on top of it. So I hope these radishes grow really quickly and don't stunt my onions, because they're the only ones left. I'm not removing them. Then we've got my onions. They're a mixture of Walla Walla and Spanish white. And right here, I made a video about this earlier this week, but that's my sun sugar tomato. We're doing an experiment, and you can see what that experiment is in the video that I made earlier this week. We've had this arugula available all winter long. It did not die. It started growing last fall. I don't know why it wasn't killed off. It's actually starting to bud again. I may leave it and let it reseed itself so I have more arugula. We have lettuce everywhere. And then here, and I'm hoping it wasn't a total loss, but I planted my artichoke out a little too early, and it got taken out by the frost. But it's actually starting to perk up a bit. It's not looking as, it was flat on the ground and very dead looking just, a short time ago. So I'm hoping that it's perking up and it's not going to die. This is an artichoke that is growing from last year alongside a little bit of blue agastache. And I love to let that sow itself all over the garden. Here's another one right here. Those bring in the pollinators. We've got a ton of little cilantro growing right next to the salad burnet. And I'll probably make that one of my plants of the week. Salad burnet tastes like cucumber. We've got more strawberries and my 4 chives that I love when they bloom. They also bring in pollinators. And here is my rosemary. It's been a really dry spring. I've had to start watering it a little bit. As you can see, we're starting to get a little dieback on the twigs from the drought. But what we also have, if you look through here, look at all those buds. We actually have some starting to open. My rosemary is finally starting to bloom. It's really late this year. Usually it blooms in February. Now, as you can see, I have 7 beds. We'll go through all of them, but I have 7 beds and they're all full. The one at the top is going to be my tomatoes. This one has my cabbage and broccoli that I'll show you in a little bit, and kale. This has some lettuce and peas. We've got my herb bed, onion bed with my sunsugar tomato, and the garlic. Now there's a problem. I have peppers and ground cherries. Peppers, ground cherries, and some basil. I'm running out of space. I may need to make new beds. So that's going to be a perennial problem here, I think. So in this bed, we have my peas. They're coming up really well. We've got the little dill starting all over the place, and we'll probably let most of those go. We have my spinach here that's starting to come up really well. I may need to thin some of those out. And then on the outside edge of this bed, I planted kohlrabi. Now this is I can't remember, I'll put the name of the kohlrabi on the screen, but this is a very large variety. It gets about 10 inches across. So I have 2 here, 1 here, 1 there, and then I have 6 more going across the back of that bed. And then we've got lettuce here. So I'm figuring what I'll probably end up doing, because I did a video earlier about the wall of waters with my tomatoes and showed you my seedlings. I have some paprika peppers, and I also have some banana peppers. And I'll probably end up tearing most of this out except for the kohlrabi and put the peppers here. Then I need to find a place for the cucumbers and the squash, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that. We'll find a place. We have to find a place for cucumbers. Cucumbers are important. This is my Canadian red chokecherry. I did a video on this tree in one of my earliest videos was on this tree. It had a girdling root all the way around the trunk, and it's not quite recovered. There's a lot of dead in it. On this side you can see all the dead. So we'll see if it gets healthier. It's not completely gone. It's got some good new growth this spring. Hopefully it'll completely recover. Let's show you what's in my hoop house. It's a little tiny hoop house. I created this and put plastic over it and started my cabbage and broccoli and kale in it. So hopefully you can see what it's looking like. We've got the lettuce over there. That was my cutting lettuce inside over the winter. It's filled in really well, and I continually cut it and use it. The cabbages are starting to head up a little bit. They're getting huge. They really like it in here. There are no bug problems in here. We've got the broccoli. I am not seeing signs yet. I'm not seeing any signs of heads yet on the broccoli, but that should come shortly, I'm hoping. We've got the curly kale and the dinosaur kale, and then we've got my chard in the back there. So all of this is doing really well. We have no aphids, we have no cabbage worms. I have seen cabbage moths all over my garden, but they haven't gotten in here yet to disturb these. In this bed, we're going to plant 6 tomatoes, and then I usually plant my basil with the tomatoes. Not because of the companion planting, but because I just like them together. I think the companion planting is a little hyped up and doesn't work as well as you would think. But anyway, so we're going to have 3 more tomatoes in here. We're going to plant those on Mother's Day and see if there's any difference between those and the ones in the wall of water. That's my experiment, and I'll link the, like I said before, I'll link the video of planting those. We'll see how it works. And last of all, as you can see, I'm running out of space in my garden to put garden plant or vegetables, and I really wanted to grow potatoes this year. I thought about growing them in bags, but I heard that they don't do well in bags in Utah because they dry out too quickly. So instead, I cleaned out my compost bins, piled them all in the center, and I will link the video that I made of compost last fall. And you can see how far it's already composted down. All 3 of these beds were almost completely full of leaves and composting materials. And this is what's left this spring. By next fall, we'll keep it moist and it should have some really good compost. So in here, now that I've cleaned out the compost bin, I planted potatoes. In this bed, I planted russet potatoes. I dug down 6 inches, put down some blood meal and some organic fertilizer. Not that it needs organic, but I did anyway. And it was compost all the way down because this has been a compost bin for years. I'm going to just keep it moist and see what happens with the potatoes. Hopefully we'll get some good ones. I'm a little more worried about this side because the compost, was not quite finished, and there's a lot of wood chips in it. We'll see. This side is red potatoes, thin-skinned red potatoes. I don't remember the exact name, but we'll see how many potatoes we get out of here, and I will do a video when they start to come up. This is my lovage. It is right now about 3 feet tall. It's going to be putting out flower spikes here shortly, but I've been using it and it is just gorgeous. All the lettuce seed that I threw out in the fall is starting to come up. We've got lettuce, we've got all sorts of things that grow through here. This is bee balm, we've got yarrow, lemon balm. We've got a ton of parsley. So all of this stuff that grows through here is stuff that reseeded itself out of my compost bin. I've got a lot of columbine. This right here is black-eyed Susan. So there's a lot of stuff that has come up through here. Then I've got my garlic. This time of year, you can go around and pinch your blossoms a little bit. Right here is one that's going to form a peach. You can feel a little bit of a hard piece in it, and that's the fruit. We had a really heavy freeze, and I've heard some areas lost all of their peaches, and I think I did not lose very many of them. Seems like probably 80 to 90% of the peaches are going to survive. Cherries. You can see in here. See that little cherry coming? We're going to get cherries. And then the most exciting thing is my plum tree. I was really worried about the plums because they get affected by frost really heavily. But I can feel little plums. This one's gone. That one's gone. That one has a plum in it. We can't see them yet, but there is a little baby plum in there. You can feel it. So I'd say probably about 60% of my plums, 60% of the blossoms that I did my little field test on had plums in them. And the same with my pluots. So I'm really excited about that. So that is my garden tour. Well, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And I would love to hear what's growing in your garden, so comment down below and let me know what's growing. In the meantime, get out there, enjoy this beautiful weather, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.